Chris was such a positive fighter. He never gave up. I think that's why when he went for his third transplant, he even said, you know, I'm going for a third transplant because 3 weeks is just not enough time to live.
Some people probably think I'm out of my mind going for 3 transplants, but you know, it's either that or a possible 3 weeks of living. It's not worth it to just give up. So I'm gonna do it again.
It was something that we needed to do. I needed to do it for Chris, and then it was something that needed to carry on being done. And it's grown way beyond Chris and way beyond any individual. It's just grown into something that is very necessary for the future of any leukemia sufferer in the country. It may have started with me trying to help Chris. We've got to build this registry. We've got to help future children. I don't want other children to die. You know, whether it's somebody else's Chris in 100 years' time. Hopefully we have a registry that can save people in the future. It's not how could I carry on, it's how could I not carry on. This is something that could happen to each and every one of us. It's not something that couldn't touch us, so why wait until it happens to somebody close to you?
So we want to raise awareness about, first of all, about blood disorders, so that people have a little bit of an understanding about what it is that we're talking about, what leukemias are, what they mean, that it is in some parts a treatable disease, and sometimes one of those treatments requires a transplant.
Leukemia is an overproduction of cells in the bone marrow. It's one of the cancers that people can develop. If it's not treated, you become exhausted, you become very pale, you develop infections, and you eventually die from either lack of blood, infections, or bleeding problems.
Funny enough, I didn't think that. I didn't think I was going to die. I did think I'm going to. No ways. This wasn't supposed to happen to me, and just tell me what to do and I'll do it. That was my mentality. Yeah. They found 8% blast cells in my bone marrow itself, so then it was told I had leukemia. And it just felt like the world just stopped right there, you know.
The treatments in general for leukemia will be chemotherapy. Essentially, you want to get rid of the cancer cells in the blood and bone marrow, and they need to be poisoned. There's a limit to the amount of chemotherapy we can give a patient.
Dr. Du Toit said, right, we need a donor. But we did search in South Africa and we didn't find a donor for me. I really thought, well, what now? You know, like, okay, I've fought so hard, go through all this chemo and no match, you know? You feel like, what a kick in the butt.
It's such a desperate thing when you're searching. You know that there's a donor out there. Somewhere in the world there just has to be a match, but you have no idea where they are.
Very scary, you know, like my fiance and I would sit and talk about it, like, okay, what's the fate now if I don't get the donor, or how's it going to work? It was just very scary.
I think if most people just imagine, you know, for parents, if they just had to imagine if it was their own child what they'd do, I think the answer's really, really easy.
It's difficult to tell people exactly what you're going through. To try and explain to them how important it actually is to get the bone marrow. You're that one chance for to save someone's life. It was exactly on the date, 7 years later, that he was diagnosed. The leukemia is back.
Ek voel nadat ek eers die chemo gekry het en ek nie lekker gevoel nie.
I put everything in God's hands. If you don't do that, I've got no idea how people can get through something like this if you don't have God and Jesus in your life.
Ons soek nou 'n jaar en 'n half vir 'n skenker.
To find your genetic twin is really what we're looking for.
We got 16 possible donors, of which 2 wasn't available. So we took the 14 and we tested them further, and not one of them matched out for the next level. They all fell out.
Up until now, the registry, the majority of the donors have been typed to what we call an AB level. What that means is that you might come up with 20 prospective donors and they need to type to a deeper level. The next level down is an ABDR level. And at that stage, you might eliminate another 18 and be left with only 2. We'd like to have donors typed to a deeper level so that at the time of a potential match, when time is of the essence, that we can actually already see that, no, we don't have 20 potential donors, we have 2. We are doing that now, but it costs.
We were having to raise 250 Rand a blood test. We now have to raise 1,000 Rand a blood test. And that's huge.
You just basically need a genetic twin. And it has to do with ethnicity.
It is much easier to find it within your own sort of genetic cluster, which we call it as a race.
And your chances worldwide, we know, are approximately 1 in 100,000.
The majority of the population is underrepresented in the local registry and underrepresented in the international registries. If you look at how many donors we have within the non-Caucasian population, the chances are low, and that becomes a problem.
The odds of finding a suitable donor are 1 in 100,000. For everyone, that is. For everyone, it's 1 in 100,000. And if there are only 1,400 black donors, what are the odds? No. What are the odds of actually finding a donor?
Aged 14, a soon-to-be Mr. Life seems straightforward. No hidden agendas, no potholes. Never thought I would die. The future looked bright from my virgin eyes, but I slipped. Told I have leukemia, lights turned red from green. Heard drips. Anger, confusion, death the reality, life an illusion. At 14, what to do then? At 14, what to do then? At 14, what to do then?
He thinks he has me. Hey! Second round, boy. Hey! I used to be hard, baby. I used to be hard. Back in my day.
Didn't really think, it would come back. That is the last thing on my mind. I thought, okay, cool. And then my doctor came in. I was with my dad, I remember, and she just told us the news that it's back, it's relapse.
I mean, it's hard to dream, especially for those who get fed through a tube that goes through the nose. Diarrhea and nausea when their heads is bald. All they do is pray, don't know what the future holds. For us, for him, for them. And thus, all we have is our faith, our hope and trust.
That is frustrating. That is frustrating. That was shocking. I was scared. I was angry. Came back. Wow. That is just.
He needs to find a donor. So there's, we're constantly recruiting in South Africa, and in particular in areas where there's a stronger genetic pool.
And what do we have in the registry? Unfortunately, not many donors, not as many as we would like to, and that's why we have a continuous call for such donors to join the South African Bone Marrow Registry.
We had one, and they let us know she's 100%. I mean, the chance of getting a donor that's 100% match is 1 in 100,000 in the world. And we got to our 1 in 100,000, and now she's not available, and they didn't give a reason. I mean, it kind of drives you nuts.
There could be nothing worse than knowing that we found a donor, we found this match. We found a match for your child and they say, I'm sorry, I joined long ago for somebody and I'm not prepared to belong anymore. That's worse than not finding a donor at all.
We need them to be committed. By the time they put their name onto the registry, we've expended a lot of resources, but more importantly, we need to know that when they get called upon to actually become a donor that will then harvest their stem cells to give to somebody else, that they're not going to turn around and say, no, I'm not really interested.
People are often motivated by a particular person, somebody that they know that's ill, and they join up to help that person. Whilst they can be motivated by that particular person, they need to be committed to help anybody.
By the time you commit to becoming a donor, you've got to become motivated in a much more selfless way to actually donate for anybody. You won't know who that person is. You'll never know who that person is. You'll never know how they're doing. You'll never be able to follow up. You just have to be able to trust that your incredibly selfless gift gave somebody life.
It felt good to be doing something for somebody, because I was thinking that should I be in the same situation, I would like someone to be able to come forward and help me.
When you finally get that call, it's the most amazing thing. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Everybody celebrates that day, but basically what happens is that there is another opportunity, another shot at life.
He said, you got a match. And to be honest, I was actually like, I thought I'd be yay, but I was actually like, oh my word, that means I'm having the transplant.
More than anything, it was a good thing for me to have been a donor, to actually save someone's life.
It's not like I was going to be losing a limb or cutting off something. It was something that I could regain again in my body.
A donor will typically donate about 2 or 3% of their reserve of stem cells. That 2 or 3% of stem cells can reconstitute an entire immune system. And that gift of a small percentage of your stem cells can save someone's life.
I was speaking to family and friends, and from what they also knew, before I got all the information, they had like a big needle they would stick somewhere, and that was daunting for me because I was quite scared that was what was going to happen, but there wasn't a big needle. There wasn't a big needle. It was actually quite interesting.
At the end of it, I was actually like, that wasn't bad at all.
I just think it's so amazing. I mean, I wish I could be a donor now because of it, but obviously I may not be one. But it's so kind of someone. I mean, my donor apparently is 24 years old, like a young guy. That's all I know about him. He saved my life, and I feel like it's part of me now because his blood has taken over my blood, and I'll be forever grateful. Yeah, definitely.
A friend of mine once said that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So I think the small things you do can make a great difference. And the testing and going to be a donor and so forth, that's a very, very small thing.
In many senses, it describes your humanity. Why would you do it?
Because at the end of the day, we're all brothers and sisters,
Yeah, I just think, if everybody just joined and could know what a wonderful, wonderful gift they're giving.
You could save someone's life. You could change someone's life. You could save my life.